this one, but I was going to talk maybe about the sort of the challenges in working in an organisation that is either absolutely unionised or has a union.
Yeah, I'm just on that now. So according to this, I'm all connected. The broadcast is connected. Oh, hang on.
Do you want me to join on my phone or something and see if I can?
We're actually live. Wow.
Cool. So if it's working, isn't it?
So, yeah, we are. We're actually live, John. So no swearing, John.
That's fine. No swearing is
John,
fine.
can you just talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I am live. Is it working all right? Cool. So if it's working, isn't it?
Yeah. So, can you hear? Yeah, we are. We're actually live.
I can hear some background noise, yeah, so presumably it's working. That's fine. No swearing is
John,
fine.
can you just talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I am live. Is it working all right? Cool. So if it's working, isn't it?
Yeah. So, can you hear? We're actually live.
I can hear some background noise, yeah, so presumably it's working.
It is working, and I need to sort this out. Hang on.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it looping for you now or something?
There you are. Yeah. We are live, and we've got 2 viewers at the moment watching, so we're a little bit early at the moment. So,
hello, viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. I've just had a few that there was an echo, but that should be resolved now, so you shouldn't. There should be no echo at all there.
Yes.
Yeah, I've just been told it's fine. Luckily, I've got little gremlins who are helping me with all of this. So, yeah, thank you very much for helping me. So, John, have you had a busy week at Epilepsy Action?
Yeah, our big national campaign, biggest ever national campaign, went live on Monday, actually. So it's called Can I Count on You? It's basically showing out-of-home ads in a range of different locations, so train stations, shopping centres, and also on some situational-based stuff as well. So the idea of can I count on a stranger to look after my baby, that sort of thing. And it seems to be going really well. So the call to action is to become an ally, and we've already had about 50 people from the general public over a couple of days come forward as allies, which is really encouraging. And all the press stuff kicks off next week, so we're really hopeful it's going to be a big campaign for us.
I think it's really interesting that we live in a digital age, and actually, the impact I've seen with Epilepsy Action to doing doing this kind of campaign, it's just really interesting. It kind of bucks the trend, I think. But the proof's in the pudding with the great results that you've had with being recognised as one of the most recognisable charities in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I think is really interesting is the way in which you can measure the impact of out-of-home stuff has always been notoriously difficult, even for really large organisations to be able to prove in the private sector. In the charity sector, it's in some ways even more difficult because we don't sell a product that people can readily go and buy from a shop. It's much more about raising awareness and trying to change opinions, particularly with this sort of campaign. The YouGov stuff that we got earlier in the year was really encouraging, just because it showed that attempt to try and change opinions and really sort of gain visibility was starting to work for us. So it's been an amazing year for us so far in many ways, with obviously the challenges thrown in by Google being the one sort of itch that we haven't quite managed to scratch yet, but we're on with it. It's good.
Yeah, I think also as well as with Epilepsy Action, you've got a little bit of a challenge in that there's no animals involved. Not to take away from other charities or anything, but I think sometimes it's quite easy on certain messages to land home, and I think working with Epilepsy Action for this last 3-4 years is really interesting to see. Kind of how I think one thing I've seen is you've got a greater community around Epilepsy Action, and I've seen a huge community base behind Epilepsy Action, where I think a lot of the sort of animal sort of charities, they are, they could put an image up of a dog and kind of instantly get them rolled in, get the donations rolled in. So I think you have quite a challenge really, getting that human message around. And then secondly, epilepsy itself is, there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and I think that's what Epilepsy Action does so well, and also what the team does so well is actually breaking down those barriers. And I think that's representative in your latest campaign as well.
Yeah, thank you. And you are right. Not having dogs and kids is challenging, but we do our best. And I think that's the big thing for us as a challenger brand is how do we manage to make more people truly understand what epilepsy is when there is so much misconception out there. So the latest campaign is doing that really well. Which brings us back to our audience, who now probably are wondering whether they're just watching us two having a natter, but we genuinely are here to talk about challenges that you guys face, rather than just to blow smoke at myself and saying we're doing a good job, which we are. But so Martin, obviously, me and you started having a chat about this, a good sort of 3 or 4 weeks ago, didn't we? Just about the fact that we're in a really unique situation, aren't we, with Charities at the moment with Google. Do you want to sort of pick up on that a little bit and sort of start to explain what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Martin Jeffrey. Been an SEO digital marketer for many years, 2 decades plus. And as John says there, I think in this last 3-4 years since lockdown, we've gone through the reverberations of lockdown, and then we've also had ChatGTP, in November 2022, that was launched, and then we started to see this shake-up of not only how AI would be used in the workplace and also within organizations, but also how it would then interrupt the search and also paid advertising platforms as well. And I work with John on Epilepsy Action through Black Lab, and what we do there is SEO, also the paid activity, also managing the grant account, and we see this reverberation of AI affecting all of these individual levels. And then talking to John, obviously we're seeing this massive disruption, and I think for us what intrigued us was literally what's it doing for the whole third sector. So we'll be discussing today, talking about cancer research, which is one of the biggest charities in the UK. It's one of the most recognisable charities in the UK, and also what we can see from our perspective as marketeers of what's disrupting them, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, but also what we can do for the future. So there's lots of tips and insights that you'll gain today from what we talk about, what we go through, and also where the sector's going. Because whether you like it or not, AI is going to disrupt every single platform that you currently work on, but also it's going to disrupt how you work internally as well. Would you like to add anything to that, John?
Yeah. So just for anybody who doesn't know, I'm John, the communications director at Epilepsy Action. So the reason why I'm so interested in this is it genuinely is a very disrupting thing, as Martin has said. So in a nutshell, charities most of the time exist to fill gaps, don't they? So whether that's gaps in public awareness, gaps in information that's available, gaps in funding or support that people need. And for a lot of us, we filled that informational gap over the last 20 to 25 years, particularly online, because there isn't huge amounts of information, particularly about healthcare conditions, that is available through things like the NHS, through Wikipedia, through other trusted sources like the BBC. This is a big challenge for people who are in that gap, because at the moment we're seeing about a 20% decrease in our web traffic every 6 months. And I know that we're not the only charity in that situation. And if you compound that over a period of time, that means that you're at about half of your traffic within 2 years and about 10% of your traffic within 4 years. So the challenge for us in terms of that model of being the information gap is that we need people to know we exist and need to know when they're consuming our information, so that then they can donate their time or their money to help other people who are coming up the sort of road behind them, who are also going to need that support in the future. So this is a big challenge for us. And uniquely, the third sector, I think, has been quite lucky over the last 20 years or so, because we've done a lot of things after the private sector. In this situation, it's the opposite way around. Google is experimenting on informational searches, and informational searches are a lot of charities' bread and butter. So in our situation, what is epilepsy? What are different seizure types? Those are absolutely ripe terms for Google to be serving via AI in the future. So how we get in front of our service users and make sure we can help them has been massively disrupted, and it's going to continue to be more disrupted. So Martin, I'll hand back to you for a little bit of a sort of slideshow to get us thinking and chatting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So from, as John said there, typically the third sector and charities have always been a source of authority online, especially around health. Charities are often the first place that Google would go to. So Google originally indexes your site, and then it stores that on a server, and then it references that when it's creating a search engine result. What's changed now is AI mode, AI overviews, and there's also a third one now called the web guide. And all three of these are doing instant searches. So rather than crawling a site and keeping it somewhere on a server, what they're doing now is going to your site, grabbing a page, and then it's trying to find the right answer. And then what you've probably seen if you type in any query, from whether it's informational, navigational, you will see this thing called AI overviews at the top of your search engine page. And that is grabbed from people's pages. It will grab a paragraph, a sentence, anything that it feels that is relevant, and then add that to the result. And this has massively shaken up the traffic for the health sector. And what people are beginning to see is what's called, if in the UK, we've called it the great decoupling, because it's the decoupling of impressions and also clicks. So you can see it's decoupling. In America, they call it the crocodile effect because it looks like a crocodile. So it's up to you how you see this. But essentially what we're seeing is and this is within the charity sector here. So you can see that the impressions are increasing. So they're increasing their content, they're increasing their rankings, they're appearing more, but there's less clicks occurring here. So what we're seeing is it's now decreasing in clicks. So there's less traffic coming to the site. We're seeing this, the average click-through rate, which here is 1%. Originally, it was around 3%. That's declined down to 1%, and that has a massive effect on traffic. And for health queries in the US, they now appear, our AI overviews now appears for 9 in 10 searches. So you can imagine that the impact is absolutely brutal. It's taking away massive chunks of traffic. We're seeing with some charities that they've seen up to 38% traffic decline. And it's not because people are going elsewhere. They're still seeing the results, but they're taking it on face value without having to click through to a website. And the same can be said as well for ChatGTP, Claude, Perplexity, is people are using ChatGTP to really understand a subject or query, and then they're not clicking through. But what they are doing is they might search for your charity directly in Google. So what we have seen as a part of this great decoupling is actually a bigger increase in direct traffic, because people are learning about the charity through ChatGTP, through these LLMs, and then making the decision to go forward and actually visit the website. And it was John's recommendation about cancer research, really. What was your primary reason with cancer research, John?
So interestingly, and there might be some people who are watching this that are part of the cohort of people who've spoken to me about this, but Cancer Research UK is both a really popular organisation in this country, and also one that I know some other cancer charities look at and feel like they're eating other people's lunch. So since the sort of start of SEO Volume 1, where the advice was to create great content online and try and dominate keywords, Cancer Research has done incredibly well at that, because it's got a very high authority domain. It's regularly referenced by the media in relation to news stories, so it does well in terms of sending positive signals to Google that it's got positive backlinks going there from a domain authority point of view. And it's an enormous content generation organisation. So I think the last time I looked at it, there was about 2,000 people working there. And I know people who've worked there, and that they say that, you know, getting on for half of the staff at times have been working in the content production machine. But as we know, up until a couple of years ago, content production predominantly, particularly as we learn later in the charity sector rather than learning up front, was very much about making sure that you got keywords on the page and sort of maybe at a kind of more advanced level, a plan in place for having head terms, and then, you know, pillars around that head term to try and sort of maximize your visibility within a particular keyword niche. So I thought it was interesting to look at them, because I knew they had a big footprint across the internet, but I also know that creating that big footprint has taken a lot of people power to make happen. So undoing it might be challenging for them, which I'm sure you're going to go into now. Or pivoting, probably a better way of putting it.
No, that's exactly it, and that was my first thoughts about this. Is now obviously we're using third-party tools. We're trying to gain as much insight as possible. The good thing is about using things like Claude or Manas, as I do. They're incredibly great at deep research. So you can often find what agencies are saying about their work with cancer research, and some of these stats come from a variety of agencies who've worked with cancer research, or cancer research actually putting this out into the public. The interesting thing is they've got very high domain authority of 77, 37,000 backlinks. Most of those are organic. They've been picked up naturally as they've gained greater visibility across the internet. And the interesting thing, and this is quite worrying for me if I was in cancer researchers' shoes, is that 75% of traffic to the website seems to be from organic. It seems to be from organic search, and that is, we've got to that number by looking at things like the Facebook ad library, the Google Ads library, also looking at social media, how much traffic they've received over the last 3 to 6 months, and then comparing that with things where we can use things like SEMrush or RFs, and that tells us roughly a conservative picture of how much traffic they're receiving. But it definitely sounds like around 75% of their traffic is coming from organic. Now, we've already talked that this year, charities are seeing between 20 and 38% decrease in traffic. So to me, I do feel that cancer research will have been hit tremendously by this. We're going to talk about some of their positives. £634 million annual income. Their £8 million selfie campaign was absolutely huge, did incredibly well. They're utilising AI in research and donor modelling, so they're using it day to day. They don't seem to be using it within their marketing yet, or at least their testing at least. We can see that they've been running tests. They saw a 294% click-through rate on some of their A/B testing on their paid advertising. They do have a lot of paid advertising, and that suggests to me that 75% of traffic is millions of traffic per month. So that means they could have also lost 1 million to 2 million visitors per month as well. And then secondly, as John rightly says, is the About Cancer section on their website is an absolute beast when it comes to generating traffic and also getting that global authority. It's massively referenced within LLM's training data. So early on, cancer research would have been introduced into the training data. People like Epilepsy Action are also in there. Any charity, the first thing you should be thinking of is, are we in the training data? And if not, are we also allowing bots to visit our site? Because that's one of the biggest issues I found, is that a lot of charity websites have completely blocked any bots from ChatGTP or Claude or Perplexity. And this means you're not getting any traffic because they can't visit your site to reference you. So just as a little tip, double check that. Cancer research are fully open and they're obviously getting a lot of references and getting a lot of traffic from ChatGTP. Is there anything you want to add to that, John? Anything that you saw from your perspective?
The other thing to sort of pick up on is just what to do with this information if you are a challenger in the cancer space. So say if you're a particular type of cancer and you're thinking this is an opportunity to get market share from Cancer Research UK, this shake-up actually is a good opportunity to do that. So had the rules of engagement stayed the same and the way in which Google ranks websites and provides click-through stay exactly the same as it has been over the last 10 years or so, getting past an organization with such an amazing domain authority is really, really, really tricky. This shake-up is really positive. On the flip side of it, if you find yourself in a niche where you are the dominant player, this isn't necessarily, as we're talking about with cancer research, all terrible news. There is an opportunity to pivot. It's just how quickly you can pivot that will be kind of key to whether you're successful or whether you lose traffic to Google and to other competing organizations who move into those spaces that you've vacated, but not by your own choice.
No, absolutely. And I think the one thing that Cancer Research has done, certainly in this last 2 years, is started expanding with YouTube and TikTok. So one thing that we recommend to people is that they start looking at multi-modular content. And I think I'm seeing fingerprints, certainly from Cancer Research, that they are looking to expand their content, not just to be on the page, but actually off. So we know within this last year that they've had YouTube collaborations. So I think at the moment we worked out they've got over 100 YouTuber partnerships at the moment. So they're working directly with creators. They're also doing the same on TikTok as well. So within this last year, they've had 66 million views just on TikTok alone. So we can see that while, when it comes to an organic search perspective, they're probably getting their traffic eaten away by AIO views. There'll be a bigger chunk when it comes to AI mode. And they're already semi-preparing for that, but probably not pivoting fast enough if I was to, if there was any criticism. And what's competitors done? So, the first thing obviously is Cancer Research is the biggest of 55 cancer charities in the UK. But we are seeing that in this last 2 years, that there's been a massive investment from Macmillan, Marie Curie, the Teenage Cancer Trust. So with Macmillan, we've seen some really big investment in their website. The one thing that they've done is basically started looking at their site as a way of a journey first. So rather than direct impact or requesting for going straight in for the call to action, it's actually a very, very gentle sort of integration and user experience. We can also see that Macmillan have started splitting over their content strategy as well. So they've started introducing more patient stories. The reason why they're introducing more patient stories is because that's what ChatGTP and LLMs want to see. That's what AI mode wants to see. It wants to see personal experiences. 2 years ago, Google announced that they were going to do something called perceptions. And this was people's video pulled from Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, and actually pulled into the results. So we can see that Macmillan's making this move into a multimodal, and still concentrating on education, still having fundraising appeals, but they're introducing things like patient stories, which is about 30% of its traffic, of its content at the moment. The other things that we're beginning to see is Mary Curie is doing a lot around increasing conversions for donations, and also its shop income, a 9% increase this month. This year. And the other big thing is Teenage Cancer Trust are really pushing ahead with their Facebook challenges. I think one thing to bear in mind is what we're seeing here is we're seeing these challenges, or these competitors decided what they're looking to do is diversify. They're looking at search as, this is a way of how we get visibility. This is how we build this visibility within these topics. But we've got to expand, and not necessarily expand into paid, but what we've got to expand is different forms of content, looking at things like UX and Crow. So looking at the user experience, looking at conversion rate optimization, because they're very important for SEO as well. They're very important for AI, and it's also very important for people now. They want a super fast journey. We also saw that Teenage Cancer Trust, while they've had £1.8 million through Facebook challenges, they also spent £2.5 million in advertising partnerships as well. So they're heavily pushing online visibility as well through paid means, when I would actually argue that there is still opportunities, especially with this disruption with AI and AI search, to actually be able to get referenced and indexed above your bigger competitors in your space as well. Is there anything that you want to add to this, John?
Just to sort of say, if anyone's looking at these numbers and thinking, oh my God, I can't play in a £2.5 million advertising ballpark. Like Martin was saying, there is the opportunity to eat a bit of the elephant rather than try and eat the whole thing at once. All of this stuff around AI ties back to conversations that have been going on for a long time about conversational web, which is the idea of basically, AI and search queries starting to feel more like conversations. So, if you are a bowel cancer charity or a breast cancer charity or a bone cancer charity, there'll be overlaps in terms of the types of queries that are now being picked up by AI, by ChatGPT, by Google, by anybody else, that you can start to be competitive on. And the sort of way I'm sort of likening this in my head is that about sort of 15 years or so ago, there was a big SEO revolution 1.0, where basically the big sort of shake up then in terms of a sector that both Martin and I were working on separately at the time on was the flowers market. So Interflora back then was absolutely enormous. And then with the changes that basically penalised people trying to get into loads of local areas, local flower companies started to appear all of a sudden in the search engines when they hadn't previously. So if you are a smaller organisation and you're not looking to try and bite off the entire trunk of the elephant, there are little bits around its toes, around its eyelashes that you can go at and start to get more service users coming your way.
That's a really, really good point, John. And I just within this last month, I've been approached to launch a new lingerie company. And the fascinating thing is that they wanted me to do a little bit of research about the market, how saturated was it, and whether they could actually, make an impact. And I came back to them with absolute transparency and honesty, and said to them, I think this is the best opportunity you've had in probably 10-15 years to launch something new, because if you launch AI savvy, you're going to make an impact. And that's the key thing is, and as you say, is if some of these figures are looking quite scary here, is that doesn't matter because the playing field has been leveled far more than what you imagine. And how I see this now is having that AI search focus means that you can have some real gains in AI, in appearing, being cited, being retrieved by AI, and having far greater visibility and leapfrogging some of your competitors. And the thing is, you could say, well, they're always going to catch up, but this is the first time in 27 years that you can have the first mover for advantage. Because if you move now, this is going to be an advantage that pays off for you for the next, for the next 5-10 years easily. Where some of these bigger beasts, they've got to pivot, and by the time they've pivoted, by the time they've sorted out all of their content that they've been writing for 10-15 years, it's going to be really slow. So anybody who's looking at this, don't see this as, oh, this is a massive challenge, that these things here are a massive challenge. Actually, it's the biggest opportunity you've got to actually get some gains before everybody else pivots, and then to have a long-lasting legacy of gains. Right, so shall we talk about some sort of weak spots and things that we saw in cancer research? And some of this, I think, will be very, very recognisable for most charities. So what it seems to be happening at cancer research is there seems to be sort of ad hoc transformation. Do you remember I said I saw little fingerprints of possible AI integration? Possible tries of, oh, we'll try this advertising campaign, little bursts. I'm not seeing any sort of roadmap sort of campaigns. It seems to be short, sharp bursts, no consistency. It doesn't seem to be, there seems to be massive, big campaigns that have done very well for them, but the day-to-day seems to be very, very weak for cancer research. I'm also seeing from their website, it just simply is not performing for AI's expectation. It's not downloading within 2 seconds, and that's just for mobile. If an LLM or AI mode is coming to your website, it literally wants the data as quickly as possible, or it'll move on and go to your competitor. So that's another key tip for anybody who's watching this, is try and get your site as fast as possible. Try and have things like FAQs or short little bits of text that can be grabbed very, very quickly, so it can move on and deliver a search engine result very, very quickly. So again, these are wins. How long is it going to take cancer research to actually do a massive pivot to try and get all of these sorted? John, if you want to jump in at any time, feel free. On
that particular point, I think one of the things to recognise, again, if you're a challenger brand, is it's not easy for big organisations like cancer research to pivot. We, compared to agency world, where Martin has worked all of his career, and I spent quite a lot of my time prior to working at Epilepsy Action, you can quite quickly change people's roles. You can change their output, you can target them in the same way, but you can tell them that their ability to meet those targets has to change. We live in a fairly unionized space, and even if we're not unionized, sometimes the attitude is very much similar to being in a trade unionized space. So getting change of large teams and saying, your team of 50 writers no longer are writing content. You're now responsible for going out into Reddit, for creating video content, for modularizing your content in a way you haven't done before. I think the only way you'll make that happen quickly is through proper organizational restructure. And that is costly and time consuming. So again, I think the ability to pivot is going to be slow, particularly in a larger organization like Cancer Research UK.
No, I totally agree. And it's happening in other sectors as well. Yeah, and it's happening within brands. It's happening so bad that Nike is losing out. I read the other day that some of the big perfume brands are actually missing out on rankings, on being retrieved. It's because they've got to literally, it's like an oil tanker that they've got to turn around. So the more you can onboard people within your organization, and one thing that we've done at Heart and Works is we're working with a big organization at the moment which deals with over £54 million worth of memorabilia every single month. We've implemented there an AI ambassador who's not only looking at the internal usage but also the marketing usage. And secondly, we got them involved because they're a person with personality who can talk to people and actually get these people on board and understands what the pain points are. So that's really helping them to pivot far quicker than their competitors. So having that AI ambassador, and that can be somebody who already exists within the company but has a love of AI or has an understanding of it. But also you could bring people in who have who are very personable, who have got great communication skills and can really show people a pathway of turning to using AI, using multiple platforms. And we've seen some really good results on the back of that. Whether cancer research are doing this, we can see little tests, but we can't see anything massively. Before we started streaming, myself and John were talking about youth strategy, and what we're seeing with youth is changing. It's not just about TikTok. It's definitely not about Facebook, and it's definitely not just clear. What we're seeing now is actually they prefer to communicate through things like Snapchat. People are using things like Reddit, Quora. It's literally spread now. It's where we could have these little areas and go, oh, we just need to advertise to Facebook for 30 to 50-year-olds. It's far more fragmented than ever before. So if you have a youth strategy, you really have to start doing more demographical and research of where are people hanging around, where are people going. And I would say that every single charity is very, very different. I recently worked with an animal charity, and most of theirs were in Instagram. It was a very female-led audience over 40, and we found them in Instagram, where if you're targeting youth, then you might need to run things like Snapchat ads, which cancer research aren't doing anything like that. Content silos, again, as John said, and I'll be very brief on this, is how can you use your existing content and how can you make it multi-modular? How can you break it down into infographics, into video, into every single different type of content, and how can that be distributed? So social medias and your social media teams are very, very important. You need to bring them together with your SEO and your content teams. So when you have a piece of content, how is that going to be distributed across the internet? And what are the keywords or queries that you're going to be aiming for? As I said before, cancer research seems heavily dependent on organic search. And that's a big worry if they're not able to pivot and if they're not able to diversify its content across multiple platforms. And I think that's going to be the struggle for them. They're going to see a massive decline in organic traffic this year and probably into the end of 2026. The other aspect to all of this is how are they going to leverage into agent to agent, which is the next big platform. Is what we're seeing is Google's no longer a advertising company, it's an agent company. It's built the biggest landscape, or has the landscape, for agents. And when somebody is searching a particular topic, they might want to do deep research and they might send an agent to do that research. So behind all of cancer research, they need to look at how their content can be used and utilized by an agent to have conversations that are outside the human sphere. which most of you are thinking, what the hell is he talking about? But what we are seeing is ChatGPT's got agents, Claude has got agents, and it's only a matter of time before Gemini starts introducing them to everybody. They will be doing the searches for you rather than you doing the searches. So the agent will go off into the cybersphere, into the landscape, and it will get the answers for you. And you can say, I want big deep research into my car, or I want just the top 10 ideas. But this is coming very, very quickly, probably within this next 2 to 3 years. And cancer research and other charities with huge content silos have got to start looking at how they utilize that for agents. Is there anything you want to add to that, John?
Just to say, if that all sounds scientific and fandangly, I think just bear in mind that nobody thought at any point that we were going to buy Netflix over Blockbuster. But I think probably the sort of rotting old Blockbuster, high street stores that were empty for years and years and years are the best example of the fact that user experience changes. People will start doing stuff as soon as it starts to become common. So the concept of buying a car through a chatbot might seem completely alien to you. But if you imagine that process currently is numerous searches over a 3 or 4 week period at the very best, culminating in a conversation with a second-hand car salesman who you're pretty convinced you're going to get ripped off by. If there was a way of not having to do that and do something different, and your friends told you it worked, you'd do it. I certainly would.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to quickly, we've touched on some of this, but just a few quick points of where competitors are making real gains. And they're making real gains through looking at, and we've seen this within agencies, marketing agencies, is actually, one of the biggest strengths is positioning. Is that Cancer Research UK's singular focus is research. That's its clear focus, and I think a lot of charities do have to think about what is our offering going forward and how strong is it, because that's going to be something that separates you from everybody else as well, and that's what benefits Cancer Research. I think the other thing as well is this long-term commitment to content and SEO. As we say, it's all going to be about visibility and authority now. You need to be really talking about not brand building, but what authority does your organization have? Who are the authorities within your organization, and how can you push them forward, even as a name on a piece of content or in a video or whatever, but how can you push your authority across the internet, from digital PR to social media to paid ads to everything, any signal or fingerprint that the AI can grab and understand what authority you have. So this was a big thing for SEO. It's now even bigger, so it's huge. I think the other thing as well is competitors are showing that measurement, journey design and pipelines are sustaining results. So you've got that opportunity as well, is to really review all the different touch points. ChatGPT and Perplexity are not taking away traffic from Google, but what they've done is they've come into that top of the funnel searches. So when people are searching for queries, rather than going to Google for them, they're going to AI, but then they go back to Google. So it's not taking away the traffic, but it's actually fitting into that journey. So reviewing the journey of a typical donator or volunteer is really essential to understand how these people are using your website, what touch points are they using to get to your website, to get to that end point. And then secondly, AI readiness. I think without a doubt that that you've really got to go for it and get a paid version of ChatGPT. Connect it up to some servers. You can connect it up to do some really clever things, test, experiment, see what it can do, and see how you can apply that into your organization. Not just to write cheap and horrible content, but actually to do something very productive and measure how much time it saves you or how much productivity it increases. Don't just install it for the sake of it. Actually monitor it and see what effect it's actually having on your organisation. Is there anything you'd like to say, John, about that?
I think the only other thing to say is all charities have had double whammy of COVID plus cost of living crisis plus shopping of government contracts. If you're looking to have them, so we know that charities don't have loads of money at the moment. So I suppose what I'm saying is the key thing to do, I think, at the moment is to try and think about, as Martin says, if AI can be used in any way to reduce any operational costs that you have that you don't really need to have. Because then you are able to both invest in this, but in other things as well that will enable you to really strengthen that offer. Because as I said right at the beginning, charities fill gaps. So the bigger gap that you can fill and the more benefit you can provide in that gap, the more likely you are to have people who think you're amazing, who spread your word on social media, give you their time back as volunteers, or give you their money as donors. So the good thing about AI is it can help you to reduce that organizational admin cost, which you can then use to deliver more value.
Absolutely. So I think for us is to sum up really is that cancer research, is a leader within the sphere, but it doesn't guarantee anything for tomorrow. And essentially, for me, the pivot is the massive thing, and that's to me the key word for everybody. Is that this year everybody has to look at future proofing as much as they can, and that's where you're going to win. The playing field is far more level than ever before, and that gives you a massive opportunity. And I would say that everything's out there that you can learn. There's enough reading materials. You can go on OpenAI's website and you can do free courses. Same with Claude, and you can learn this stuff, and it's not going to be super confusing. And the main thing is just get an LLM and just have a look. And with AI mode, just have a look at what you think people are searching for, and have a look at where your charity is referenced. Have a look at where it's appearing on the right-hand side. How can you improve that? What are people talking about? There's a lot of really quick wins to be had if your content is right, if your marketing's right, and if your website is fast enough. Is there anything, John, you'd like to add to that as well?
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered it off really succinctly. I think you're absolutely right that it's the ability to be nimble in these situations, which is ultimately how you are successful. Like you said, this is the biggest level playing field we've had since Google started out 27 years ago. But we have had disruptions to search before, and we do know that when people are nimble and are able to pivot tactics, that's when you're able to take advantage of these situations. So that would be my only piece of advice. And just in case anybody's wondering that I'm sitting here saying that we're doing it all perfectly right now, absolutely we're not. We're learning just as you are. But one of the things I'm really pushing on to think about how we change what we do rather than just continuing to do the old stuff and hope it's all going to be okay.
Excellent. If anybody's got any questions, if you want to put them into the YouTube chat, if you're watching us on YouTube, we can answer any questions that you've got. If anybody's got anything.
Anyone got any questions afterwards, they're always welcome to drop them on email, aren't they? You're very good at responding to those sorts of things, aren't you? Which is very kind.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else, John, that just before we sum up that you think we might not have covered that you think is important to talk about from your perspective?
I think one of the things I've been reflecting on a little bit recently, I've just today actually found out that I've passed my ILM management course, and a lot of that is about reflection and about thinking about how you lead within a charity organisation. Obviously, we're a charity organisation, and I think one of the things that is particularly challenging is some of the cultures in charity are very much about wanting to make sure you always come across as being the expert and that you know exactly what it is that you're talking about. And I just wanted to say to anybody who's watching this and feeling any level of self-doubt or any level of sort of non-certainty about this area. Don't feel like that. This is something that everyone is going through uniquely, and nobody has the answers to this sort of thing right now, whether you're somebody who's been a comms director for a year or whether you're somebody who's been a comms director for 30 years. This is new. So I think the best thing we can do to support each other, and this sector is great for that, is just talk to one another and share opinions and thoughts. So that was all I wanted to basically say, is don't be alone and worry about it. Talk to us.
No, absolutely. And I mean that's what I was saying, is the language can often seem, overwhelming, and this last sort of 4 or 5 months for SEOs has been overwhelming. But I think, as you say, if you reach out and just ask, there's lots of areas and things that you can point people to, or offer just advice on how you can approach any of this. But no, that's great. Thank you very much for John for today. And we've got no questions. So, but if anybody wants to reach out, if they reach out to myself or John, I'm sure we'd share vice versa. We can help you. We'll catch up with you very, very soon.
Brilliant. We're going to put these online, aren't we, as well? So if anybody wants to refer back to anything we've said today, because I appreciate we've crammed a lot into 45 minutes. We'll put the link on one of the LinkedIn posts so that people can go back and watch at their own leisure. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll share this, and it'll be on the Heart and Works YouTube channel for everybody to watch. So, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Bye.